What is going to be different this time?
What is going to be different? Just as a background, as you mentioned, the November 30th summit last year was postponed and explained by the absence of Burundi.
All right.
Then the heads of state put the meeting to December 27th. That meeting too was postponed and no explanation was given. Are we sure that the meeting tomorrow will actually take place? I am not very sure. Secondly, you know, you mentioned that for the first time, this time around, the hostilities between Burundi and Rwanda are on the agenda.
Right.
But when you analyze and look at what Arusha Secretariat is saying, that may not necessarily be true. That is a narrative being pushed by protagonists to this conflict. When you listen to people from Burundi, they are saying the agenda, the conflict is on the agenda. I just talked to Deputy Minister for Rwanda's Secretary of State for East Africa. That is Olivier Nduhungirehe. He told me, no, that idea is not on the agenda. The Burundi-Rwanda conflict, he says, is not on the agenda. Therefore, that also goes to explain the extent to which this problem is a very big challenge, even to the East African community, because if it were on the agenda, as Burundi, some Burundi diplomats are saying, it would be very clear to the EAC Secretariat to explain what is on the agenda, so because it shouldn't
is saying that this is on the agenda, but then the Secretary, Olivier, Minister of State for Regional Affairs, Olivier Nduhungirehe, says they have no information of that. Does that mean that is not, it's non-existent, like there's nothing like that actually?
I think it means that that idea, the conflict, is not on the agenda officially. Because if it were on the agenda officially, our Minister of State in charge of East Africa would know. Again, the East African Community Secretariat would explain this very clearly, because there is no problem in explaining what is on the agenda. My hunch is that protagonists to this Burundi-Rwanda conflict are using the EAC to try to play politics as a bet, or even to somehow to hold the East African community hostage to their differences. Remember, Rwanda-Burundi conflict is not the only conflict in this region. Okay. If you ask politicians in Rwanda, if you have been following news, the relations between Uganda and Rwanda...
There is a rift as well.
A serious rift, because Rwandans are accusing Uganda of abducting Rwandese in Uganda, of torturing them, of holding them incommunicado, of expelling them. So it is not just Burundi, but in Rwanda. But with the Burundi conflict, for me, I think putting it on the agenda before the internal Burundi conflict is put on the agenda. Remember, Mukapa spent 2 years studying that conflict and presented a report to the chairperson in charge of that conflict, who is President Museveni of Uganda. Before that is put on the agenda, I think it is in a way subcontracting the conflict in Burundi to Rwanda-Burundi conflict, because the Rwanda-Burundi conflict was born after the problem, the internal conflict in Burundi started in April.
After the attempted coup d'etat when President Pierre Nkurunziza was running for the third time. Allow me to quickly get into that conversation that we saw in December. President Nkurunziza sent a letter to His Excellency, the President of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, declaring Rwanda as an enemy to Burundi. Just at the National Dialogue, President Kagame was asked for his thoughts or response to the Burundi situation. He said that if we came out to respond to that, it means that we've succumbed to Burundi's pressure, or actually saying that they're like just agreeing to what they're saying or their claims. Tell me, what is necessary right now for regional integration affairs? Because there are some fears that the bloc could fall apart if this continues to happen, even the Uganda saga.
Thank you. I think there are broadly three things. But before you get to that, remember, anybody who has followed the Burundi political crisis will know that it is a conflict that began with President Nkurunziza's quest for the third term.
Yes.
So when he said he would go for the third term, opposition political parties, private actors, civil society activists started to demonstrate in April 2015.
Yes.
Then in May, there was an attempted coup when he was attending a regional heads of state meeting in Dar es Salaam. I remember he was also attending on behalf of the media and the business community, because concurrently, it was a big thing. Yeah, so after the coup, when those who organized it failed to effect it, it became a Rwanda's problem. So people who follow Burundi conflict, they claim that President Nkurunziza and his supporters are subcontracting their conflict to Rwanda in order to make sure that the internal problem is exported to Rwanda. So that's, I suppose, what President Kagame was saying. He was saying that Burundi is trying to drag Rwanda into its internal conflict because it does not want to own an internal problem and solve it, and thinks that by exporting it to Rwanda or subcontracting it to Rwanda, international actors will start blaming Rwanda instead of blaming Nkurunziza for his third-term power grab. Now, what do we need to resolve this regional problem, including the Rwanda-Burundi conflict, including Uganda, Kenya, commercial business wars, including Tanzania.
Tanzania and Kenya are having a very steep business war right now.
So what we need is first for regional heads of state to meet and speak truth to each other.
All right.